Okay, welcome back to the Okay Not Okay podcast, and for the time being we are at least going to give it a shot to move each of our other segments from the weekly show into the podcast. So for today we will tackle the okay question of the week. So Sports Zoo, what's our question? Doc, Drew McIntyre keeps losing due to CM Punk's interference. If you were the Raw GM, what would you do with his situation? Okay, great question, Sports Zoo. That's definitely one that needs to be figured out as soon as possible. Well, first, let's start off by saying I would, of course, be a much better general manager than Adam Pearce. Let's just talk about some of his many failings this year. First off, he let Liv Morgan get the first title shot at Becky Lynch after Liv had just injured Rhea Ripley to cost her to drop the title. Liv then was 2-6 in all matches at the time when she got to face Becky. And since winning it and defending it against Becky the next night, she has played with Dom for 2 months instead of worrying about that title. She has just one title defense in all of that time. So the World Women's Championship has been totally left to the wayside in favor of Dominic Mysterio. Then, Braun Breaker, what can we say about him? Pearce inexplicably left him out of the King of the Ring tournament. Why would he do that? He had just used a very good second round draft pick on Breaker in the draft, then somehow let fellow rookie Ilya Dragunov enter the King of the Ring tournament instead, even though Dragunov was drafted lower than Breaker. Why would you do that? And due to that, since then, Breaker has been on a complete rampage. And he injured Ricochet so badly we may never see him again. So, wow, you are ruining things there, Pearce, with Breaker. Lastly, the Wyatt Six. Can you believe what has happened with the Wyatt Six? They injured 20, 30 people just a few weeks ago? And all of a sudden, the only person that seems to be affected by it is Chad Gable. It seems like Pearce has done a cover-up of what happened to everyone else. Are they dead? Are they in the hospital? Are they all okay and just back to work? Well, that would be nice to know, but we don't know it because they don't say anything. It's just all Chad Gable for some reason. I don't get it. Pearce, what are you doing? Let's be honest. So that, of course, takes us to the never-ending drama between Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. Well, McIntyre is 1-4 in title matches in 2024, including 2 Money in the Bank cash-in matches, and Punk has somehow interfered in 3 of his title match losses. First, at WrestleMania, when he won the title, just 5 minutes and 44 seconds later, Punk had started to battle him and Priest was able to swoop in and win the title. Then, of course, in his hometown of Glasgow, Scotland, he all of a sudden showed up as the referee and cost him the match when he obviously didn't have the power to be a referee, but nonetheless, any other referee could have come out there and counted the 1, 2, 3. And as we just saw at Money in the Bank, after McIntyre turned it into a triple threat match, Punk yet again came out and injured McIntyre, costing him a chance to win that one. So, on top of that, Punk also interfered in the Fatal 4-Way on the night after WrestleMania. So Punk has cost him 4 times in matches since WrestleMania. Now, despite that, and despite McIntyre having an elbow injury that cost him almost 2 months without matches, he is still tied for 5th in the most matches on Raw with 17 matches this year. He's also second most singles matches on Raw, just behind Sami Zayn by 1. Zayn has 18, McIntyre has 17. He also has the second most singles wins on Raw. Again, just one behind Zayn. Zayn with 12, McIntyre with 11. McIntyre also won 2 of the biggest matches of the year, the Elimination Chamber and the Money in the Bank ladder match. He was also a very impressive 4th place in the Royal Rumble, and the biggest of them all, he won the World Heavyweight title at WrestleMania over Seth Rollins. But all is not so rosy. He, of course, has had several interferences, suspensions, terminations, fines. So in our calculations for STFs this year, he has 13 total STFs, which is tied for the 4th most on Monday Night Raw. But he has 8 suspensions, which is 1st on Monday Night Raw, and it included a triple suspension on the June 21st SmackDown. First, for appearing on SmackDown just a matter of days after he quit on Monday Night Raw, when, of course, he's not allowed to be on SmackDown. Then, he had that bloody attack on CM Punk in his hometown. That got him a 2nd suspension. And finally, he pushed General Manager Nick Aldis, which of course was not allowed, getting him his 3rd suspension. Now, Pearce did give McIntyre a fine and suspension at the post-show of Money in the Bank, as he laid hands and pushed 2 separate referees. Now, why referees are showing up at post-shows, I don't know what they're doing there. You would think maybe security guards would be there, but no, 2 referees. That didn't make any sense at all. But on top of the 2 referees, he also elbowed Adam Pearce, which Pearce, I guess, when he takes contact, he finally has it in him to give a suspension and a fine. Now, we do not give both suspensions and fines at the same time, because obviously if you get suspended, you don't get paid that week. So, that said, he, for us, just got a 2-week suspension this week, so he would not be showing up on Raw. However, Adam Pearce has already lifted that suspension for next week, and McIntyre will be back on Raw, but CM Punk will not be allowed. And they will see if they are able to set up a match at SummerSlam between these 2. But let's talk about SummerSlam. So we know that the World Heavyweight Championship match will be Damian Priest versus Gunther. Now, Gunther earned this several months ago, winning King of the Ring, so he's just been kind of hanging out for a few months, which he certainly has the right to do. He'll be nice, rested, and healthy, ready to go for SummerSlam. But maybe Pearce seems to have lucked into the right call here. If he can have that as the World Heavyweight Championship match, and this incredible blood feud between Punk and McIntyre at SummerSlam, he has found himself into 2 good matches. So it just might work out. But the question is, will this be able to work out? Because even though CM Punk is not allowed to be on Raw next week, Dayton is not too far from Chicago, so it might not be too tricky for him to find his way into that arena and harass McIntyre yet again. So we'll just have to see how this works out. Of course, we do have to worry about CM Punk even being cleared in time for SummerSlam, as he obviously wasn't, or Seth Rollins probably would have laid hands on him at the beginning of this week's Raw. Well, ultimately, for Drew McIntyre, as we said, his results are just too good to ignore this year. He is 11-2 in all matches when Punk does not interfere. And he has no tag matches, so these are all singles matches, including some of the biggest multi-person singles matches. So 11-2 when Punk does not interfere. Just way too good to be ignored. And his one loss that was clean for the title with Seth Rollins was on day 1. But of course, McIntyre won the rematch against Rollins at WrestleMania, so he's already atoned for that loss. So the next PLE after SummerSlam is Bash in Berlin on August 31st. So what should we do about this here? I think the solution is fairly simple. McIntyre has earned his right to stay at the top of the contenders list And he also just needs a fair fight. That is ultimately all he's been asking for. Just a fair one-on-one battle to win that championship. So we've got to find a way to give that to him. So how are we going to do that? Right now, we've got Priest versus Gunther at SummerSlam. Right now, we say the winner of that match will face the new #1 contender, Drew McIntyre, at Bash in Berlin. But that's not all. On top of that, we're going to make that match inside a cell. That's right, you've got it. That's the way CM Punk cannot get involved in this match. And a stipulation to this SummerSlam match between Punk and McIntyre, if it's meant to be. CM Punk, it's going to be in this contract that you are not allowed to interfere in the following match, or you will not get a title shot going forward if you want that match against McIntyre, which I am sure you do. So that is going into the clause, that is going into the match contract as a clause. CM Punk cannot interfere at Bash in Berlin. So there it is, Gunther or Priest versus McIntyre in a cell. That way it's closed up top, no one can get in, and McIntyre will get his one last shot to win the World Heavyweight Championship. So what do you think? We'll see how it goes and what Pearce can actually come up with, but I think this idea is the best that we could possibly have for Drew McIntyre and for the entire Monday Night Raw roster. So I'm Dr. OK, and this has been the OK Not OK podcast.